Hello. Daydreaming, this Mozart Rondo in A minor, K511, is about direction of line rather than legato only as a glue of sound between sounds. But it's also about placement of ornaments for delaying meaningful notes. It's about speaking legato. Of course, the length of sound of the modern piano allows some bridging or resonances when this run-on sentence goes on. For instance, one could, of course, indulge in the intuitive musicianship, which is the most important, even after nuclear amounts of knowledge, which shouldn't write, because you only learn what you love. And the more you learn about it, the more you love it, not because of what you learned, but in a way what you learned makes you love it more for what it was before you learned what it is that makes it. It's really a life-changing experience to maintain the two, the given and the acquired. Sometimes you think, even wrong, I liked it. And now rightly, with some performance practice understanding, I might perhaps do things in it that don't mean what I want to express. And ultimately, does it matter? It was improvised and it was ephemeral already in Mozart's time. Today, we pick it from the score, from the teacher, from the recording, from the YouTube University, and we build our own understanding, but then we play it for audiences who might or not know it, and then they receive it in turn and accept it with or without stylistic knowledge, and it doesn't matter. You can watch a painting without an art historian next to you, but it helps to also do so once you really are hooked on the painting. So perhaps when you do, the melody goes from a dominant to the tonic. In logic, it's a tension release. If the harmonization was 5-1, the perfect cadence, but it starts with the root position, the harmonization, and the root position in the melody, the same La, comes after it started. So it has the upbeat rhythmically, as well as the harmonica beat, which is finally on a downbeat at the end of the first bar. Then the climbing chromatically, the Sisyphus, the effort to climb by semi-step, which gives a sense of, projects a sense of pain, perhaps struggle, but in sadness. And then, after a breath that is not interrupting the line, or shouldn't, you go over to the tonic above, and then descend melodically in the natural church mode of the descending minor, which sort of drops faster in the almost glissando style of a vocalise compared to the painful step by step, rather semi-step by semi-step rising on the scale and then releasing it down, and always restarting the melody on the upbeat to lighten up the downbeat in order to go into the run-on sentence further, and improvisationally every time manipulate the delayed or anticipated expectation with all these effects of accacciaturas and appoggiaturas and syncopations, but in fact the line is always to try to rise with difficulty and then drop, like Pierrot trying to catch up the moon because he's a daydreamer in the Commedia dell'arte, and then dropping sadly down to the condition of humans. We try to elevate our spirits through this aspiration, ascendant transcendence. We hold in one of the other variations that he decorates to the suspended lastinato up there. And then provoked, painful, I was going to say provoked, but truly, 7th degree in minor leading tone with a flat 7, natural 7 together. So the structure of the phrase is relatively simple. Would have been easier if it was an allegro. But when you stretch it, it becomes subdivided, and then because it's decorated, the decorations, the subdivisions make it syllabic, sometimes almost spelling bee-like by the note. Would have been an allegro in a slower tempo, but with direction while breathing inside in the sub-phrasing. So the bowing is more the attraction to the horizon line with interruptions. In that sense, it's difficult to be too much aware of Romantic era long run-on sentences because it is not yet the mid-19th century. It's only the late 18th century. Though it comes from the Haydn tradition, he explores something where the line doesn't just formally, intuitively understood, shape the form of the statement. It's the statement that matters more than the form already. It's a way to be more speaking of one's own sorrow in this chromaticism in A minor, expressing it rather than the formal Haydn, where you have this injected, embedded emotions, but on the shape you remain formal. And the accompaniment is banal. It's terrible to say Mozart is banal, but in a way, by not being attractive in its design, it allows to focus on the meaningful recitativo aria of this lament in the right hand. Don't drop the line, it's not finished, continue, semi-cadence. Operatic laugh descend, then the relative major, would be the new sentence or the new half sentence, exploring the major with a lower range, even if he didn't have a large range on the piano, but still his time. The return to the minor is a little bit of back to human condition. I mean, it's easy to make all these analogies. It's sometimes cheesy, I must admit. But it's true. Like the first ballade by Chopin exposes the sorrow of G minor, either the half diminished second degree minor seventh or the dominant of the dominant stop. And there the hope of the major through the relative, and back with the semi-diminished seventh, minor seventh, back to G minor. So the relative major comes as a puff of hope, like the shining C major in the sorrowful A minor of the Mozart Rondo. There's no fermata but for the demonstration, and there we are back. Till here we still hope, but what is in C major, a deceptive cadence, would be in A minor, but we're already in A minor, so we only return to it. In other words, we never left it, even if we tried to escape it, perhaps in daydream, in thoughts. I think the minor key in Mozart is a smile with a tear rather than despair, like in Scriabin or in Rachmaninoff. I think it is melancholical more than sad, and if that makes any difference, I think it does. It's a way to not be complacent in the sadness or the sorrow of the mood, but to find some solace in that minor, after all, explored through every possible chromaticism, escaped, if possible, through any major relative, and then returning back to its condition. The B section being in major but not relative, the very major in the minuet. And there, that is without expressing personal feelings, just polite bows and expecting small talk. Fine, and you, I'm fine, and you're fine. I don't say what I have inside, I just show the mask. Of politeness, after all. It's not only a lie, it's just part of the way to live in society. So the B section of the B section does have this diminished sevenths of inner anguish, but it's almost as if to show in aparté to the audience, oh, while I smile to you innerly, I am still worried. And visiting other minor keys. But ultimately, even when Mozart writes in major, he's not only jolly, it's just gentle. Sometimes major in Mozart can be, and it is mysterious, like the dissonance quartet. Again, chromaticism could be both major and minor, even if it's more often minor. Here it's more mysterious, as an introduction to his C major quartet, the dissonances. And the D minor string quartet 421, while in D minor is more energized by the rhythmicity of the repeated sounds of the accompaniment. I wouldn't say the the same if it was in major. Of course, we would put that in a later romantic music association of minor major with mood swings, but I think we could still do that even in the earlier Mozart outlook on romanticism, or what we consider it is: run-on sentence, sorrow, all about me, form doesn't matter, I have to express myself. Here he expresses himself more formally. And in the later works like that Rondo, a silent complaint, a sad clown, and smile with a tear, all this is obviously cheesy. But true, to be honest, as people like to say when they think they'll say something negative, but I still think it's positive to be honest. Except when you have to just politely say, hello, how are you, and not answer exactly how you are. To be polite to the others. Everybody has his stuff, or her stuff. I would advise to not overly cutify, but it's difficult not to, because it's so nice to be finally happy, even if superficially so, rather than be profoundly nostalgic in minor. Sometimes it's a good wake up. Like self-motivation. It's written like an aria. I mean, again, the left hand is not banal, but almost. Mozart loves to apparently get lost in an unexpected turn of events in a key that is almost surprising to him, like, where am I? And then inches himself slowly back home. Having passed through the relative, but also through the Neapolitan sixths, flat second degree, and all kind of harmonic colorizations rather than modulations. And then he's almost untangling his sorrow. Which one do you hear more? The ascending thirds, melodic, not harmonized, even if the pedal could do, but or the finger pedal. The legato overstaying. Thematized is one of the two voices, but this one voice. It's really a vocal pattern. Oh. To do, oh yes, they did in the 18th century, but they didn't have word text nor auditions. So when I have students to succeed, I need to not let them do, because somebody in some jury will say it's not in the score, which it is not. Even if the notation was only the lesser part, or the visual part rather, of the iceberg, because they didn't record themselves, but they notated, and most of the interpretation was in the improvisation, which wasn't notated, and a little bit of a simplified version for the students, or the dedicatee was written out. So in those days then. Now that we know that, what does it do to us? Nothing, because most of us don't have a compositional drive or background or education, not only to compose, but just to know how to. Or to feel allowed to, and therefore where and how much, because the Pandora's box is easy to open and impossible to close, and therefore people stay on the rails and they would not improvise even if scholars do, but that's what you expect of them. And concert pianists don't. And that's perhaps also what you expect of them. And I guess teachers are caught in the middle. Sometimes it's good to know what you could, and then even if you don't do it, you still implement it within the written notes. So it's kind of characteristic imagination, that little flame in the eye that makes you go instead of as it's written or as you would like it to have been written. And you can do this kind of variations on the theme, decorative ones, melodic ones. But I still think that it doesn't really matter, because even if you play exactly the text score, at least the one we're given to be that, you can still express a lot of the meaning of it. My teacher used to say, if you really don't feel comfortable playing what the composer wrote, regardless if we have always the access to its original, let's say, manuscript or editions, but that's for scholars. And even so, you would like to write your own, and then when you play the one of the composer, try to just play what the composer said. But that means also that I think you embed a lot of your imagination in it too, even if you play the notes of the score. So it's not like reciting something and being afraid that it could every time be wrong if you just overstay or go another note. But I still think that, well, of course, as a composer, I don't shy of doing that when I compose my own music. And when I play the music of Mozart, in this case today, which I have played since I'm, 7-year-old, when I started studying this piece, is the first piece my teacher advised me to study. For piano, or was it for music? Or was it for style? Or was it for elegance? Or was it for expression? Or was it not to mention for what it was, except just do it, and then with life it macerates through you and it becomes you. And perhaps wrongly so, perhaps I misunderstood it all my life, but I enjoy knowing it. Teaching it, sharing it, and let it be always surprised by it too. Tracks. The art of interrupting silences, run-on sentences, spoken, sung, meant, shared, lamented, moody, driven, horizon-seeking phrasing, details expressing, balancing hands, accompaniment to melody, tempo to acoustics, length of sound to pedal, style of this, style of that. I don't have the ear of the day, nor the fingers. But it's today, and I like it this way, even if perhaps I'm wrong. What is authentic? I don't know. I could tune it lower, I could play it on the fortepiano, and I could also enjoy it on the piano. The more you study, the more you know that you have to go back to your instincts as a musician before you became an educated musician. Not that is anything to oppose to education, except that you should maintain that capacity to think outside of the box, to not accept the status quo. Now, the tradition demands for ritenuto, the rubato, expressive this, expressive that. Oh no, I don't want to do too much. Oh, people do usually way too much of this. I don't want to do that. You don't want to be playing something in reaction. I don't want to be romantic in Bach. I mean, it is a good concept to think about, because the more you eliminate, the more you choose what you really want. Not that it's like doctors could define your disease by elimination of different tests. But you could try. And you see, there's one thing that is so true, is that the pace is not to do with the tempo. It's to do with the phrasing, the legato, and the quality of the connection of the sounds, or their elocution. I find that older musicians play pieces that are slow in a more moving forward pace, and younger people tend to play it with longer taking time, because somehow the depth comes with more time to savor every note. So at which point does the teacher, the trusted advisor, say it's too slow? It's not natural. You should project the older, well, later, further sitting audience, balance, projection, sound, phrasing, articulation, direction, pedaling. It seems all like ingredients for a beautiful soup, where all of them, these ingredients just blend.